Warning, this show contains adult language, so viewer and listener discretion is advised. Welcome to another edition of Up and In It, a show dedicated to improving quality of life for both people and planet through liberation and independence, moving you from surviving to thriving and living life on your own terms. My name is Adrian Babashoff, and this is episode 253, Inside Tiny Living. I've been tiny living for a very long time, and I just wanted to kind of share a few things within 15 minutes here. We just did yesterday's show on trying to make sense in an insane world, and this is the thing that got me with the tiny living here is that my mind started to get jumbled up. I started to get very stressed out, and I gave you guys some of my solutions to what I think should happen on yesterday's show. But one of the things that I realized and what prompted me to do the show was that I'm not trapped. And I've said this before on the show, but it really keeps sinking in to where I keep looking going, well, maybe I should buy a house. I want to get out. But when I look at the amount of freedom, that's like the very thing I have on my first note shows the power and comfort of mobility, of just watching things happening and designing my life. I call this the alternative lifestyle design, and it's the alternatives to the designs that we have around us. And tiny house, tiny home living, tiny living in general, which can go in many different forms, is one of the best things to do to simplify life, to take it down to its bare bones and actually give you the time to breathe and my opinion, to invest because you have so much control in your life. So if a lot of things start to happen, we got stuff right now in 2021, wildfires, and maybe some places where the pandemic was worse than others. You can literally pick up, you can move. Let's just say you had a better job or something somewhere. You wanted to explore. Like me, I'd love to check out South Carolina. I'd love to check out Florida. I'm a little concerned about hurricanes and most of all tornadoes and things like that. But if I so happened that created the opportunity for myself to go, I have the comfort of mobility to do so. I could pack everything that I own and I could relocate within minutes. I mean, well, yeah, but not within minutes. I'd say within a few days. Let's not get cocky here. But the power of this is I'm not tied down to anything. And I just sat back the other day and just looking, going, oh my God, this is nice. It's not the best of situations, but as far as making decisions to change my life or do things, I have the power. I have the option to do that because I've created this so in my life. And I thought that was a very big part as far as stress management and, these crazy times that we have going on. Tiny living just keeps you mobile, and I'm not sure, but I think I want to live the rest of my life this way. I'm not sure if I want to get married to a house, to a piece of land. I don't know. It's got its quirks. It would be nice to live on a piece of land, though, to have my own trees and animals and things like that, and be able to repair a certain section, of my home called Planet Earth. But I also look, and I can utilize spin farming, which I've talked about on the show. I can utilize other people's land to do those things. And I could live right on the outskirts of the city in stationary RV living is what I do. And, I pay a fraction of the rent that most people do. I don't have to really own the land, and I can actually produce my own food, practice permaculture, natural farming, and all those type of things. And it suits me now. And if I decide I get too busy, guess what? I can move on. If something happens to this area where, as I said, some sort of climate change, I think, is a big issue on, big word right now, big buzz. And if it happened to where a place dried up, like here in Sunnyside, California, in San Diego County where I live, I can easily relocate if the water was an issue, which it looks like it's becoming an issue. So that's another thing that prompted me as far as mobility, making sense of all of these things. Like, where do I go? What do I do? But being mobile, I'm not sure if you guys understand, it sounds like the farmers are getting shut off of water in the San Joaquin Valley in central part of California. It's becoming a huge, huge issue. We're experiencing a very high drought. So whereas most people, like the farm owners and bless their hearts, and these poor people who have to go through all these things, people like us who are mobile, who live tiny, we're able to pick up and relocate. And let's say we'd go to some place like South Carolina where they get 80 inches, 40 to 80 inches of rain a day and start farming there, or start living our lives where there's better water. We relocate within a matter of days. So let's move forward. Patience, oh patience, is my next note. Living tiny it can be very difficult. Although I've noticed this in when I was in a house, the ex-wife, I remember she'd be cooking in the kitchen and she would just yell, "Everybody out of the fucking kitchen! I'll start cutting heads off." You're trying to move around from the stove to the fridge to the oven to the sink, and there's people all in your way. You're just kind of dancing around each other. But guess what? When you're tiny living, we don't really have that option. We're all pretty much stacked up on each other. I think even if you're a couple, even if you have a dog, I've got a neighborhood cat which I've lured into my place by feeding him, and sometimes this thing will be doing figure eights around my legs and stuff, and I'm carrying things. It could be a pain in the butt. It's like I like to equate it that you're living in a hallway constantly, but if you simplify life and you do it right, everybody understands. Look, when Dad's cooking or Mom's cooking or somebody's doing something, let's just go over here for a while. Until things are done. So it is like living in a like a hamster, in a very, very tight, confined space. But the simplicity of it all, I think, is what gets me. And besides the mobility and everything like that, when I get home from work, there's not really much to do. The space is very small. I think I'm just under about 280 square feet. Very, very small. It's our complete living conditions. Now I do have a shed that I built. It's a 8x10, and that's where my oldest daughter, she spends most of her time. We put a couch in there, Christmas lights and soundboard, carpet on the ceiling so she could play guitar, yell, howl at the moon, and not really disturb the neighbors. And I'm not sure. Maybe I should say that we live in an RV park, and it's full time. There's tiny houses here. We're basically not traveling around, so we are stationary. Although we do, as I said, the power of mobility. If we do decide to be rubber tramps and go traveling around, we can. So yeah, the simplicity of it all is I can clean my house in, my goodness, probably about, like my chores, they take me probably about 4 hours to do. That's washing dishes, scrubbing toilets, emptying out the black tank, filling up my gravity-fed water filtration system, and there's not really a lawn to mow. There's not really, I don't have to take care of the pool and jacuzzi, which is provided here. There's a lake and a park. Any trees or something falls over, somebody else is taking care of it. The water's paid for. The trash is paid for here. So there's not really much to do, and that gives us, I think, the simplicity of all this. I think if somebody's looking to get ahead, to be an investor, to make money, to get yourself ahead, there's no better way than the tiny living, stationary, even RV living. And there's so much that I'd love to share with you guys, but I've got to cram it into 15 minutes here. That's our allotment with because it costs us to do this show. So yeah, the simplicity, I think, is really, really huge. I think that a lot of the complications and things that people have in their lives, look at the time and the things that are, get a bird's eye view and look at how much time that you're going to spend maintaining, cleaning, and just, I would have to say it's a little more convenient in a house as far as the space, but it gets really complicated. You get more things, whereas when you're living simple and you're living tiny, you're forced to actually minimize your life, and that brings a lot less stress. And which brings me to my next note, which is human kennel factor. I've designed this thing, this idea, a couple of years ago, probably about a decade ago. And living in Sunnyside, San Diego, California, the weather's relatively just nice all the time. Like the winters do get a little cold. We get some freezes and stuff that happen here. But for the most part, it's not like Michigan, it's not like Texas or Arizona heat. Not like Michigan or Wisconsin freezing cold. And I looked and I just said, how would I want to live? What if I went even tinier than a tiny house? And I asked myself, what would be the perfect condition? And for me to live outdoors, I'm always outdoors. And one of the things I looked at was build yourself a little kennel. So basically what that would comprise of is a 4 by 8 foot sheet of plywood. And what I would do is build myself a little tiny box, basically just to sleep in, maybe have a solar panel on top. There's a guy, I can't remember his name, he was actually building, they called auxiliary living vessels or something like that. I don't know. He did this really cool, like tree houses and stuff like that, where he, took the door off of a dryer, You know, they have the glass door washing machine, the little bubble, and that's like, you put that as a skylight, or one area where it was so small, that's where you stick your head when you go to bed so you can look through like a spaceship window capsule. Really cool stuff. But I looked at the human kennel factor, and if you're living in a relatively nice climate like I am here, you know, netting, I think, to keep mosquitoes out and bugs while you're sleeping, snakes, you know, you don't want snakes crawling in bed with you. But really, the only time you need that sort of protection, and not all the time, is when you're sleeping. But what if you had a hammock, and what if you had a camping chair or an outdoor sofa like I used to have, where you spend most of your time outdoors and with nature, and the only time you go in is in the kennel is when you need to sleep. And that's the way I treat my tiny house. So a lot of my cooking and everything like that is all done. Our relaxation, you know, we did for 4th of July, everything's outside. I got an outdoor futon with a pop-up tent with a screen around it and everything, a fan on, and we take naps outside, and it's just really, really, really nice. And I think that the kennel factor is kind of hilarious, a human kennel. But if you think about it, if you really wanted to simplify your life down to like a radical, extreme design, you literally could design yourself little tiny 4x8 foot little capsules, and these things could be on skids, and you could skid them around. Wouldn't that be a kick in the pants to be able to like stick it by the lake, tow it over to the side of a hill, change your view every night, or, you know, whatever you want. So yeah, let's talk about some unconducive aspects of tiny living. And this is the thing, this is why I consider sometimes maybe I should get myself upscale to, like, say, a mobile home or something larger, is that it's awesome and fine and everything to live tiny, but the problem I have is that I like to produce a lot of my own things. I've been preaching a lot on the show to become a producer instead of a consumer. And one of the things I like to do is I like to ferment things like kimchi, sauerkraut. I like to store seeds. I'm a seed collector for vegetables. I want to breed my own seeds, but I need lots of counter space. You guys probably already see where I'm going with this. Sprouts. I want to sprout my own vegetables, my own seeds and things like that. Microgreens, and there's all kinds of different things that we need. And we also need, like, when you're doing things like this, you actually need a low variance of temperatures. You don't want the temperatures to go very hot, very cold. You want them to stay relatively, you know, stable, so that you can't, the fermentation process and drying process and things like that, life of your seeds, you don't want your seeds to sit in 100-degree weather. They'll dry up. You don't want them to be freezing cold either, although I think the freezing cold wouldn't bother them too much. Not very conducive aspects is in that tiny space, you're forced to not kind of do those. I mean, you can get a jar here, a jar there. I think if you were, you know, sprouting some seeds or something like that, but really if you started going large scale, it's almost that you're living too large to live tiny. And I think this is the push me and pull you thing, as far as for my life, where I look and I go, you know what, maybe we should consider doing something different. Food storage, I think, and storage in general. Food storage, if those of you guys know, I'm semi of a prepper, meaning that I like to have like 2 months of food in advance, and it's things I'm already using. I don't want to go into details. I don't have a bunker, and I'm not, you know, one of these crazy people with camouflage running around. I just like to have these things personally because I'm lazy. You know, I don't like to go grocery shopping. I hate dealing with people, with traffic, and just the Walmartians and the you know, the people in Costco, and just people just driving. The other day was insane. What I like to do is grocery shop out of my freezers and out of my pantry. The only thing I do need to get every once in a while is some fresh produce. And as the season's progressing here, I don't think I need to even get that. I think I'm able to produce most of it myself, as far as like cucumbers, tomatoes, and lettuce and things like that. But the storage space is what really, really sucks, as far as if you are looking to be sustainable and resilient, and you do want to prepare for things such as storage of water, gas, things like that. You know, I like to have fuel, like about, I want to get probably about 30 gallons of gas to have on me all the time. I utilize it for my business, but also for if the power ever goes out for more than a day, I want to keep my freezers and everything running. So things like that, storage spaces. I do have, where I'm sitting right now is actually my storage place in the RV park here. I do have a 30-foot shipping container and also a 40-foot shipping container. So those are like my garages, and that's where I can kind of store things. But they get very hot in the summer, and you don't want to store things such as bottled water, canned foods, and things like that for a very long time because of the heat. It's not very conducive. So that's just some of the things I look at where I'm not sure what I'm doing. But the thing that I do love is that the power of mobility is I can change this stuff relatively fast. I'm saving a shit ton of money, and I can go buy myself a house if I want to. I can go check out other places in the United States if I so choose to. So I love that power of mobility and everything, and I'm not quite sure what I'm doing. There's a lot of pros and a lot of cons, but really when I look at how nice it is to be able to just pick up and go and to know that like we're not stuck and glued down to anything, it's such a wonderful, good feeling, and it definitely alleviates a lot of the stress that I imagine a lot of people are going through, and if they're not, they probably will with these crazy times that we have. And I hope not, but I hope that I've given you guys some solutions. And if I have, and I've entertained you guys or gave you guys any value, please like, subscribe, comment. The best thing you could do to support this show is to review me. Guys, if you give me a review, this is going to help other people to find the show. And maybe it'll go bigger where we could do like hour and a half shows instead of just 15 minutes condensed like this. So, guys, only if I brought you guys value, please feel free to do that. So, Up and In It Show. Gmail.com. You guys can message me direct. You guys can even leave me a voicemail on the at upandinit.com on the website. You guys could actually call in and leave a voice message there. So Up and In It on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and anywhere where they allow me to play these podcasts. And guys, as I always say, go out there and have yourself a near life experience. Don't lose your muchness. Carry on the fire. Human up. Live it, love it, own it, and bone it, my friends.